to draft a running back in the first round or not to draft a running back in the first round? That is the question that the Denver Broncos are going to be facing in just a couple of weeks' time when the NFL draft gets underway. And here in Denver, that has been a conversation that we as fans and media have been having for the last several weeks. And I think there are a lot of really valid opinions and valid viewpoints on this. But I do also feel that when you look at the history, both from the Broncos' perspective, like in this article here from Bob Morris, where Denver has a pretty high hit rate on later round and even undrafted running backs, to also the history of running backs who have been drafted in the first round, I think the Denver Broncos might want to think twice before spending a first-round pick on a running back, most notably Omarion Hampton or maybe even Travion Henderson. So let's go ahead and bring in this tweet that I just put out on my Twitter account not too long ago. Every first-round running back since 2015. There's some good players here without a doubt, but when you look at the overall hit rate of these players, it's not as high as teams would like it to be. The most recent example of a first-round running back in the NFL is Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons. He was drafted 8th overall in 2023, and he looks like, so far, a slam dunk pick. I think if there is a true RB1 in a class, then you can identify that player and draft them early. I'm okay with that as long as you are certain that that player is going to be a slam dunk. In his first year, he was limited by Arthur Smith's play calling, but in his second year, he really stepped up, 1,400 rushing yards in his sophomore season. We'll have to see if he'll be able to sustain that kind of production moving forward, but so far, that looks like a good pick, and you could almost equate that to what fans and media are hoping Ashton Jeanty is going to become in this year's draft class. Then we come over here and we take a look at 2021, where there were 2 running backs drafted in the first round. Najee Harris by the Pittsburgh Steelers, 24th overall, and then 1 pick later, Travis Etienne by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, Travis Etienne has been a good player, but he's had some injury issues. He missed his entire rookie season. He missed time due to an injury last year, and it actually feels like Tank Bigsby is slowly becoming the RB1 down there in Jacksonville. So Travis Etienne, he's been a good player, but if the Jaguars went back, they would probably want to do that pick over. This was a pick that was made by Urban Meyer and company, but the GM, Trent Baalke, he was involved in a lot of these most recent, just absolutely baffling draft picks by the Jacksonville Jaguars. They finally got rid of him. I think deep down, Jacksonville would go back and probably not take Travis Etienne and take somebody else in the first round, and I think the same thing could be said about Najee Harris. He's not even on the Pittsburgh Steelers anymore. He signed a deal this offseason with the Chargers in free agency. Pittsburgh was pretty content moving on from him. He's been a good player. He's been an effective player, but he hasn't been the slam dunk type of player that the Pittsburgh Steelers were hoping they were getting, drafting him in the first round, the first running back overall off the board. I don't think that Najee Harris would be the guy if the Steelers could go back and redo that pick. Clyde Edwards-Helaire in 2020, he was one of my biggest draft L's. I thought Clyde Edwards-Helaire was going to be really, really good, but he just never developed. He kind of plateaued in the NFL and just was unable to really find his niche role there in Kansas City. They tried him in a bunch of different roles, a bunch of different types of running back roles, and he just couldn't really find a role. He wasn't a scat back. He wasn't a third down pass catching back. He wasn't a first down back, just up the gut. He really couldn't find his niche in the NFL, and he ended up fizzling out. I believe he's currently on the New Orleans Saints roster, so another one where if KC could go back, they would do that pick over. 2019, we've got Josh Jacobs, and Jacobs is a really good player. There's no denying that. He has killed the Broncos in multiple games, but He's no longer on the Raiders, the team that drafted him. He is now a Green Bay Packer where he continues to tear things up. One of the better running back picks of recent memory in the first round. And in 2018, we got another one that worked out really well in Saquon Barkley, but there were some years there when Barkley was dealing with some injuries that a lot of people felt that Barkley wasn't worthy of the second overall pick. And ultimately, the New York Giants decided to move on from him. That looks like a stupid decision the more and more time goes on. But I do feel like Saquon Barkley was worthy of the second overall pick. He's somebody who is on his way to a Hall of Fame type of trajectory, especially after he was able to revitalize his career these past couple of years in New York and subsequently in Philadelphia this past season. But behind him, we have a couple of big-time disappointments, especially Rashad Penny to the Seattle Seahawks. He was a flat-out bust in Seattle. He did kind of find some success, ironically enough, in Philadelphia, but he was not good at all during his time in Seattle, a pick that Seattle definitely would have gone back and done over again. Sony Michel, it's hard to call him a bad pick per se because he did help New England win a Super Bowl, but he fizzled out. He dealt with some injuries and ultimately retired a lot earlier than you would have hoped he would have. And I guess he did win another Super Bowl with the Rams too, but still not exactly worthy of a first-round pick in my personal opinion. Leonard Fournette, another player where you could say that it wasn't exactly a bad pick. I mean, he helped the Jaguars go on that run to the AFC Championship game in 2017. He was on the Buccaneers team that won the Super Bowl in 2020, but he wasn't worthy of the fourth overall pick. You could definitely say that. Christian McCaffrey, when he's healthy, he's amazing, but unfortunately, he's dealt with injuries. That's why Carolina ultimately elected to move on from him, and San Francisco is now starting to see some of the repercussions of that. Last season was virtually a lost year for Christian McCaffrey, and I think we're starting to see that overall decline, but I would say that overall, he has been worthy of that 8th overall pick. He's one of the better examples of a first-round running back working out. Zeke Elliott had that amazing rookie year in 2016, but fell off a cliff ever since then. Dallas made the stupid decision to give him that big contract, and that contract really hampered their overall roster construction for several years, and I think it's one of the main reasons why Jerry Jones is so weary to spend big money on contracts anymore, because of this Ezekiel Elliott deal blowing up in his face, and now Dak Prescott's deal blowing up in his face, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Zeke Elliott, I don't know, man. I don't think he was worthy of the 4th overall pick. If Dallas could go back and do it over, there are some much better players who went off the draft board after Ezekiel Elliott did, who were, quite frankly, a lot better. Todd Gurley. He's an interesting story because injuries really zapped his overall potential. He had some really amazing years there, especially in 2017 and 2018. It looked like he was on a Hall of Fame type of trajectory. Unfortunately, he had knee injuries at Georgia that lingered into the NFL. It took a few years, but they finally started to bite him in 2019 especially. That was his final year with the Rams. He spent a year with the Falcons and then was out of football after 2020. So that's the risk, man, especially with a position like running back. It's a volatile position and injuries can take their toll rather quickly. Todd Gurley is probably the most extreme example of this, but it is something that can happen. We have some other running backs here where injuries have taken their toll, like Christian McCaffrey, who we just talked about. Some other guys, Travis Etienne, injuries really took their toll throughout his career. Bijan Robinson dealt with some injuries early on, but it looks like he's mostly shaking that off. So that's another risk with drafting a running back in the first round is injuries. Then we've got Melvin Gordon, who was also a first-round pick by the then San Diego Chargers in 2015, our former friend. And Melvin Gordon's a guy who we all know deep down was not worthy of the 15th overall pick. He had some highlight moments throughout his career, but the fumbling issues just were his biggest bugaboo throughout his entire NFL career, and that is why he is out of a job today. It's not because he can't run anymore, it's because he puts the ball on the carpet. So when you look at the overall success rate of these first-round running backs, odds are you're probably not going to get a bad player. You're not going to have a full-blown bust situation unless you're Seattle with Rashad Penny and arguably Kansas City with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But a lot of these guys deep down are not worthy of where they were drafted. And I do think there is one clear-cut slam dunk running back in this year's draft class. Obviously, we all know who that is. It's Ashton Genty. But when you look at some of these other guys who are getting some first-round buzz, especially Omari and Hampton, I've made a video talking about how I'm not the biggest fan of Hampton. I think that he's got the potential to fall in line with some of these players like Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, Sony Michel, Leonard Fournette, Zeke Elliott. Good players, but probably not worthy of the pick that you spent on them. So for me, if I'm the Denver Broncos, I am staying away from drafting a running back in the first round. I am going after a defensive lineman. I'm going after a wide receiver, especially if one of the ones you really like falls to you. I'm going, hell, even offensive line would not be the worst thing in the world. Bolster the trenches. That is how you win football games. You can find quality running backs later on in this draft that can be RB1 that you're not going to spend a first-round pick on that you would later come to regret. Caleb Johnson in the second round is getting more and more appealing to me right now at running back, and I would much rather come away with a Derek Harmon or a Kenneth Grant plus a Caleb Johnson as opposed to an Omari and Hampton in the first round. But that is just my opinion. That is what the historic data suggests. And again, this article here that Bob Morris did suggests that the Broncos' history indicates that they should wait as well to take a running back. But let me know in the comment section below, guys. How do you feel about this? Do you think that the Denver Broncos should address running back in the first round? Or do you think that they should be patient and let them find a running back later on that can be a high-quality starter without that high-end risk on the investment in the first round? Drop those comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are both free and easy ways to show your support. It helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and it helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And until next time, guys, I'm your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.